She had been crawling for hours, dragging her numb legs through mud that clung to her like a living thing, each pull of her arms leaving streaks in the wet earth, her breath ragged, shallow, and broken, whispering again and again, "I can't feel my legs anymore," as if the words might somehow bring sensation back. The jungle canopy above her trembling with distant artillery, the final echoes of a war that had already swallowed her youth, her family, and now, her body. She had been a field nurse, barely 22, assigned to a half-collapsed bunker where wounded men begged for water she could not give, and where officers beat anyone, man or woman, who appeared weak, insisting that pain was discipline and fear was disloyalty. And the last blow she remembered was a rifle butt smashing into her spine when she asked permission to lie down, a moment of white-hot pain followed by the horrifying disappearance of feeling in her legs. Her lower body turning into dead weight as she lay curled in the dirt, listening to the retreating footsteps of the soldiers who abandoned her, left her with a canteen of half-rotten water, a torn blouse, and the crushing belief that she deserved this shame for not dying as she had been trained to. For days she lay alone, unable to stand, unable to fight the fever twisting her mind, until rain washed over her like a cruel blessing. And then, unbelievably, footsteps approached. Heavy, foreign, purposeful. And she panicked, clawing at the ground to hide, whispering, "No. Please, don't." But the shapes that emerged through the foliage were not Japanese officers ready to finish her, but American soldiers in muddy fatigues, rifles raised cautiously, freezing as they realized they were looking at a shattered, paralyzed woman barely strong enough to lift her head. One of them knelt down, speaking softly, though she understood nothing, his face a mixture of shock and anger. Not at her, but at whoever had left her like this. And when he gently touched her shoulder, she screamed, expecting violence, humiliation, a boot on her neck, anything her commanders had promised about the monsters who awaited any Japanese woman who fell into American hands. But instead, he pulled back, hands lifted in reassurance, and called for a medic, who arrived panting and knelt beside her with a kind of carefulness she had never once seen from her own officers, checking her pulse, her breathing, his brow tightening when he moved her legs, and she did not flinch. They carried her out of the jungle on a litter, 3 miles through mud and rain, one soldier shielding her face from branches, another whispering, "You're safe now, you're okay," though the words felt unreal, like a dream she had no right to believe. And when she reached the American field hospital, a place she had imagined as a torture chamber, she was stunned to find clean white tents, warm lantern light, and nurses who gasped when they saw her condition, immediately bringing blankets, morphine, warm broth, and gentle hands that treated her not as an enemy, not as a disgrace, but as a patient. American doctors examined her for hours, discovering severe spinal trauma, broken ribs, untreated infections, and wounds so old they had turned black at the edges. And while she drifted in and out of consciousness, she heard them arguing angrily, not about her, but about the cruelty she had clearly endured. One doctor slamming his fist on a table saying, "Who leaves a girl like this to die?" And in those words, she felt something break open inside her, something painful and fragile, a realization that her homeland had abandoned her long before the Americans ever found her. Days passed, then weeks, her legs still unresponsive, but her body slowly warming, healing, nourished by soups she at first feared were traps, by medicines she thought might be poison, by kindness she tried to reject, but could not escape. And the American nurses brushed her hair, washed her face, changed her bandages, whispered gentle encouragements she didn't understand, but felt deeply, until one day a young medic placed her hand on his own knee and said slowly in Japanese he had practiced for hours, "You are safe. Here." And for the first time since her injury, she cried. Silent, shaking tears for everything she had lost, for everything she had been taught to fear, for the realization that the hands healing her were the same hands she had been raised to hate. And though she never fully regained the use of her legs, she found something far more unexpected in that American hospital, a truth her commanders had tried to bury: that compassion did not belong to a nation or an army, that humanity could cross even the darkest boundaries of war, and that sometimes the enemy you feared most was the only one who remembered you were human.